Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, we're coming off a football bye. Basketball has started. The two biggest national storylines right now are across everything. Preston Spradlin era, good. Peyton McDaniel, defensive dog.
I haven't been able to watch the highlights of the women's basketball game yet because while that game was going on, I was in attendance at the Atlantic Union Bank Center watching James Madison men's play. So I do got to go back. So I guess we'll get into that later on in the podcast. But she was a dog?
Bad shooting day for her, which I think was, Peyton McDaniel's off. You're a little concerned. 10 rebounds, 7 steals, though. Only 2 points, but it's pretty impressive to step up like that when you don't have your A-game shooting.
In a double-digit win, right?
Yeah, that's a nice one on the road for them. Both teams look like they could be really fun this year.
I'm so excited. And I'm also really excited to let you guys know that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your online betting needs. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen because you can't watch games as they happen anywhere else. I'm really glad they don't do air checks on this. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, even entertainment props. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. We got a lot of places we can go. I guess we just gotta start. Not a ton has happened since our last podcast in the football world.
Indiana's cruising.
I got takes. I've been on ESPN Richmond this week.
Yeah.
Hosting the morning 8 to 10 a.m. hour. And I've been petitioning that Indiana is underrated.
You're a late arrival in this bandwagon, but welcome.
I am. And I think you know why I'm a late arrival to this bandwagon?
Jealousy. Hatred.
Because of Delvin's What You're Talking About, Willis, onto the house 2 weeks ago. Made me actually dive into the numbers a little bit more. And I was like, wait, no, Indiana should be a top 5 team in this college football playoff committee ranking that they released.
They're killing teams.
You can only play who's in front of you. Okay, you didn't tune into the JMU.
One last Indiana take, though. They got Michigan at home this weekend. They actually have a bye before Ohio State. I think that Ohio State game could be competitive.
I think they may win it. Ryan Day doesn't know how to win. Ryan Day doesn't know how to win a big game. Kurt Signetti, neither does he, but they don't know that yet.
That's right. It would be funny if they get up 14-0 on Ohio State and Turtle or something. That'd be fun to watch from the outside.
That would kind of feel like vindication for everything. All right. Yeah. So I've heard rumors that this bye week came at the perfect time, Bennett. Did you hear those rumors too?
I've heard those, yeah.
Strong bye week came at the perfect time. Team can get healthy-ish. I'm not sure if we'll see Tyshawn Wyatt. Not sure if we'll see Carter Sweezy. But both of them may be returning for the final games of this season. That's still all up in the air. But they're taking on Georgia State this Saturday. You and I will be in attendance. Looking forward to this game. If you are watching it from home on the ESPN Plus broadcast, you'll be able to listen to our friend Delvin Joyce on the ESPN Plus call with Kurt Dudley. Any major takeaways, major previews, keys to the game going into this? Because I just don't think Georgia State is a fantastic football team. Yeah, they beat Vanderbilt earlier this year, but a blind squirrel finds a nut once.
Yeah, I think you look at the last 4 games, this is far and away the one that they would be pissed if they lose, right? I think the other ones you could talk yourself into wins or losses at ODU, at App State, and then home against Marshall to end the year. This one off a bye, I don't think fans can rationalize the loss here. So they kind of got to get this one, I think, to get to 7-2, sort of keep themselves in the East race, kind of, but more so keep them in the race to get to 10 wins at some point this season, whether that's the end of the year or a bowl game. It's winnable. Georgia State's not great on either side of the ball. They're particularly bad defensively. They're bad defensively on early downs. They're bad defensively against the pass. They're bad defensively against the run. This is their 4th consecutive road game, which is just...
Who did the scheduling?
Brutal scheduling. I don't know how that happens, but 4th consecutive road game. So I imagine they're feeling fatigued probably physically, maybe mentally too at 2-6. I imagine that's a little bit tiresome. JMU should be well rested physically and mentally coming off a bye. This is the perfect spot to like cruise to a win. Doesn't mean they will because the passing game has been pretty ugly the last couple weeks. So that's sort of the key to me is can you get anything going in the passing game? And then can you take advantage of one of the most advantageous spots on your schedule? Because as you've mentioned a few times, ODU and App State are both coming off buys in those next two games. This is one where JMU has a rest advantage. You got to take advantage of it.
This game means so much for JMU because if you get this and you show a good showing, a dominant showing, I think you get a lot of fans, kind of myself included, where I'm not fully bought into the fact that they can win out this season. And if they want to win the Sun Belt, they have to win out and get some more help from Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern had yet another 20-plus point comeback over the weekend to pick up a big-time Sun Belt win. If they had lost that game to South Alabama, things are looking mighty different. But for JMU, I don't have the faith that they can win out for the rest of the season and set themselves up to be in a spot to potentially win the Sun Belt at the end of the season. Very tough games coming up. However, if you go out and show a dominant performance against Georgia State, that may change my thinking. Like you said, it is a really bad Georgia State defense, so take everything that the offense does with a grain of salt. But this JMU offense has been struggling to really move the ball effectively, specifically through the air, for a while now, regardless of who their defense is. Georgia Southern didn't necessarily have, a lockdown type of defense, and JMU's offense struggled to really move the ball against them. The passing attack has really regressed over these last few weeks. Currently, they rank 79th in the nation with a negative .01 EPA per pass. They actually are much better running the football this season, ranking 43rd in the nation with a .07 EPA per rush. They got to lean into one of the two. If they're able to lean into one of the two and consistently good offensive play, then the Dukes can win this game and set themselves up. If the running game is working against Georgia State and they decide to continue passing the ball like they have in both of their losses this season, that's going to make me really worried for the rest of this stretch. If they go out and they're running the ball for 5-6 yards a clip and they abandon the pass and they start running the ball a lot more, that's actually going to make me feel a lot better for the rest of the season because it shows that Dean Kennedy and this offense is able to kind of adjust as the game goes on and adjust their game plan and not lean fully into the passing like we've seen them do in their both of the losses.
Yeah, if you can't get like the passing game going a little bit, if you can't get the offense back on track, I think you're going to have like legit questions that linger into the offseason. Where I think if you can get it figured out here, do some okay stuff the last 3 weeks, there's enough stuff there between like the Coastal game, the UNC game, the Ball State game, etc., that I think you'll still have some faith in the offense going into 2025. But they're getting close to a point where there are going to be some like legit hard questions need to be asked about roster construction, play calling, etc., in the offseason if they can't get something going here off a bye against a bad defense that's on like a just horrendous spot in terms of 4 consecutive road games, which is just crazy.
Yeah, and JMU's defense will probably do what they've been doing all season and just lock down Georgia State. You said it, they're not particularly good at anything offensively. They're not particularly bad at anything either.
Yeah.
They rank 84th in the nation in EPA per pass, 84th in the nation in EPA per run. They actually rank 56th in available yardage. So of the available yards to them, they've picked up 49.6% of them this season. Not a bad statistic, but they're just not doing it really effectively. I think the story of this game is going to be the special teams because Georgia State's special teams is sneaky good. They rank 9th in the nation in average starting field position on their own 32, which means that they're blocking punts. It means they're getting good returns. They're setting themselves up in advantageous situations. And then they're 60th in the nation in average opponent starting field position. Opponents average starting on their own 27.
Yeah, they seem like they're sort of just like an average offense and special teams, and then the defense is dreadful.
Just
but
dreadful.
They're not. Yeah, I mean, like they're not. I think they're better than like Southern Miss at almost everything. So it's not like that. And that game was kind of sneaky close at times. So like JMU has to figure something out offensively.
Yeah, some names to excuse me, frog got me. Wow, that caught me by surprise. Some names to keep an eye on. Freddie Brock leads the team in rushing. He has 575 yards this season, 5.8 yards per carry. Michael Dukes, that's a nice name. Maybe we pick him up in the transfer portal. He's averaging 6.6 yards per carry. They've leaned to Christian Vayu. I might be mispronouncing that. He has 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 1,312 passing yards this year.
I think they switched to Gibson though, is my understanding. So I think they're leaning on the last few games. Zach Gibson, senior quarterback, kind of respectable.
This last game against UConn was pretty good. He went 28 of 40, 257 with a touchdown. Did have a pick, but adds something in the running game.
He can run a little. He's thrown 100 passes, only 1 interception, which JMU's defense is that turnover heavy. So there is a path to disaster here for JMU. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is a path to like. I feel like a lot of fans have kind of counted this in the win column, and everyone's looking at the last 3. If the team does that, there is a path to like, oh God, this is a bad home loss, which they need to avoid.
I just really think like you got to come out and make a statement, because even a close win in this game, to me, oh, that's going to be great podcasting. Just a nice cough. To me, a non-dominant win here makes me real worried for the end of this season. I know App State isn't as good as we all thought they were, but they're not bad. ODU,
looking all right.
ODU scares me, despite their loss this weekend to App State. And to finish out the year, it's not easy against Marshall. I mean, heck, since moving to the FBS, Marshall's 1-0 in Bridgeport.
Marshall might win the East.
Are they? Yeah, it's insane.
They got a better chance than JMU does, I think.
It's insane how it's all shaking out. Do you want to kind of talk about the status of the Sun Belt East as it stands now? Because it's still a potential for JMU to win the Sun Belt East.
There is potential there. I think the scenario requires going undefeated the rest of the way. So you have to win your final 4 games. Georgia Southern right now is 4-1. They lead the Sun Belt East. Marshall's 3-1 with a loss to Georgia Southern. So Marshall, if they win out, Georgia Southern only loses 1 more. There you go. ODU, they're 3-2. JMU is in 4th right now at 2-2, which is kind of a tough scene, to be honest with you, to be in 4th in the East based on how they started this season. You got App State, which is lurking at 2-3, even though they got off to a brutal start this year. They're not far behind. JMU drops this one, they'll be right where App was at 2-3. Coastal's 1-3. They've fallen off a cliff. And then Georgia State is 0-4, joining Southern Miss as the only Sun Belt teams without a conference win.
So as it stands, Georgia Southern would have to lose 2 games.
Yeah.
And JMU win out if it's a head-to-head tie, or you hope Georgia Southern wins 1 more, loses 1 more, Marshall loses 1 more, and JMU wins out. Because if that happens,
that scenario also doesn't work for them.
Okay.
Because Georgia Southern beat Marshall and JMU, so they have the head-to-head over both. So I think we talked about that like 2-loss scenario. I think that's dead.
Okay.
I think you actually need Georgia Southern to lose 2 more games to have 3 total losses.
So Georgia Southern finishes this season. And the only real hope you could have with Georgia Southern like dropping a game is away from home. And the great thing about the end of their schedule is 2 of their final 3 games are at home. So you need some luck, because they're at home against Troy, then on the road against Coastal, and then at home against App.
Yeah, if you want any glass all the way full conspiracy-esque drinking the Kool-Aid takes, Troy just picked up another win. They're 2nd on the year with a really nice running performance against Coastal. Georgia Southern's defense is not particularly good at stopping the run. There's a bye week for both teams. Maybe Troy is onto something. They find a way to win like a shootout, running the ball with Georgia Southern overlooking them. They go to Coastal. App State's a rivalry. So, I mean, there's a path there that they could certainly lose 2 more times, but the chances of them losing 2 more times, JMU figuring out its offense and winning out feels highly unlikely. I think ESPN FPI gives them like a 9% chance of winning the division or something like that. Like it's unlikely that JMU will play for a Sun Belt championship, and they have only themselves to blame. They got bodied in Statesboro, and they blew a game against the ULM team that isn't very good. They're 3-2 now in conference. They South Alabama beat them by almost 30. Marshall just beat them. You know, like that's on you if you don't if you don't win the conference. Like you got to take care of business against those teams, or one of those teams, even just
One of
one.
them.
Could have beaten ULM and then given yourself a much better path where Georgia Southern would only need to lose one more.
Don't fumble it and let them have a scoop and score for 90 yards. If you don't let that happen, you win.
Yeah, won the turnover battle against Georgia Southern 4-0 and lost by 14. Like you don't have a lot to be. Oh man, like things had broken our way.
They did, and you lost 2 games,
yeah.
and potentially more because this. Man, you got me negative already, Bennett.
I don't think they're going to win the East. I'm also not like I think next year, the year after, we're going to have a little more of a foundation with Chesney to build on and make some stuff happen. So I think like great chance to develop, and it would be cool if they went on a run and had a chance to win 10 games. I also think individual wins over ODU, App State, and Marshall all mean something. So even if you lose one of the others or two of the others, getting a third win or winning the third game or whatever would be important. Georgia State less so. Like I don't think that carries a ton of weight for the fan base, but that's one that like if you get it, you guarantee a winning season, and you keep yourself sort of in the East race going into the November stretch run. So I think there's still a ton to play for. I just don't think the East is up for grabs at this point. Maybe we'll see in 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll be like, wow, it's actually up for grabs.
I'd say roughly a 9% chance of winning the East.
Sounds correct.
Real quick, do you have anything else you want to add on football? Anything else you want to talk about? Any takes you want to get off your chest?
No, I'm excited to see what happens.
Excited to watch the game in person. Excited to see the Bridgeforth atmosphere this year.
Check out To the House with JMU Hall of Famer Delvin Joyce. To the House drops every Monday, and it's bringing you the best content around JMU football. Delvin gives his takes and his insights on everything happening around JMU football. To the House, new episodes drop every Monday. Subscribe to the JMU Sports News Network to never miss an episode.
Yeah, let's see if that's a solid edge.
I do want to say one thing. This defense, I don't think we fully understand how good it is.
I know.
This JMU defense. Like, I remember at the beginning of the year that we were sitting here on this podcast saying, you know, they're not getting 3 and outs at the same clip they had last year. This defense really is, I don't think it's as elite as last year. And then, like, each week they slowly prove us wrong, and each week they get better and better and better. Max Olson just put out the stop rate and points per drive yesterday of the top teams in the FBS. JMU ranks 6th in the nation in stop rate at a 76.2%, which means teams are not scoring. Right? A stop rate is just not allowing points on the board, correct?
I think so.
At 76.2%. Yeah. So teams are only scoring on JMU 23.8% of the time. Magnificent stuff from Lyle Hemphill. And oh, by the way, JMU is allowing just 1.37 points per drive, which is an insane statistic.
And they're up toward the top, if not at the top, in like defensive touchdowns. They've scored a bunch of defensive touchdowns. They've got special teams touchdowns, plural.
They're cooking.
It's a bit, I don't want to say damning, but it's a bit frustrating, I think, for fans to see that level of play after last year, to maintain and even build upon the defensive and special team success, and then have an offense that scored 133 points in a 2-week span that then has sort of floundered in conference. Like it's a little frustrating. So I do think fans are really eager. If you're looking for anything this weekend, it's like, all right, can the offense trend in the right direction? Because if it does, there's enough there, obviously, defensively and on special teams for JMU to go 10-2. I think both of us, the reason we're maybe not expecting that is because we have some serious doubts that the offense is going to kind of turn it on.
The thing with the offense is that they have the talent, and they've shown at times they have. Not even the Ball State and the UNC games. I'm not even mentioning those because at this point, those are outliers you can just never rely on. That's just something that will likely never happen again this season. What I'm saying, like with the talent, is they have George Pettaway and Wayne Knight. Those guys are combining to average around 6-7 yards per carry. With everything happening around this team, I want to see them lean into that more. I want to see them lean into what's working. I want to stop seeing them be so reliant or so just hell-bent on passing the football. They're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it's just not working. Get the round peg out, man.
Run it, short passes, and then maybe try to go take the top off after that. It feels like after those 2 explosive games, they're like, we're the explosive offense that takes deep shots. And everyone was like, okay, cool. Maybe you can take a deep shot after like we send 8. And they're like, wait, that's really hard. And they just kept doing it though. You know?
Like, wait, you're not allowed to blitz that many. We don't have that many offensive linemen. Wait, I thought this was flag
football.
football.
Pressure's coming. Wait a second. Everybody just calm down. What if we just had a clean pocket, please?
I'm very intrigued to see also Alonzo Barnett, his decision to run. So according to PFF, he takes like 5 seconds to decide to scramble, which is like one of the highest rates in the nation. Need to see that come down.
Need to see that come down. It would be nice to see the offense get going. Because I do think like none of the teams left on the schedule are like, oh, well, nobody, fans hate to hear this sometimes, but like nobody in the Sun Belt's that good this year. Okay. There's not like a Boise State in the Sun Belt. No one's particularly scary.
Like, yeah, but there's a JMU.
ODU's like a scrappy team. They're fun. Freshman quarterback's fun. They're beatable. Same with App State, where App State is basically like Aguilar and Caden Robinson, which is good. That's a great like wide receiver quarterback duo. But they don't have a ton else outside of that. And then Marshall is like, are they going to fire their coach? Are they not going to fire their coach? I don't know. I'm not sure they even really totally know. So they feel like they're teetering on the brink of like, we get an East title and we're stoked about Huff, or like this spirals the last few weeks. Could go either way. Georgia State's in a rebuild. Like, it's there to go on a run. You got the best turnover forcing defense in the country. Special teams is cooking. Like, you just got to figure out how to throw a forward pass in the year of our Lord 2024. I feel like it's doable. How to
figure out how to throw a pass in the year of our Lord 20.
It feels doable, man, and I hope they can do it.
All right, that brings us to listener questions. First question is from Connor Ray. How will daylight savings time affect the team's slow start?
This is funny because I was considering asking you about this, being like, we talked about the day, night problems, and now we got a clock shift. This is going to be an issue. I don't know. But
I don't know either.
We're monitoring that.
That is a situation we're actively monitoring. We're keeping tabs on that quite actively.
They haven't had a true. So I feel like the Coastal game, maybe they got rid of some of those, like, they can't play at night concerns. They really still did thrive at the noon and 1:30 games, and they haven't had anything that early again. And they won't until maybe the last 2 games of the year, even if they get those. They might not again until ever, maybe next year.
Ever. Maybe never again.
So I don't know. I mean, this is a 3:30 game, and the sun's going to go down at like 5 something.
I know. Maybe even earlier.
Have a good first half. You know what I mean? Like, you got to cook. Dean Kennedy's got to get them going early. If they can get 21-28 in the first quarter, because after that, it's going to be tough sledding probably.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
That was the ULM game, right? The sun was out and they were killing it.
Okay. That first drive in the ULM game, it was like, uh-oh. Happy learned how to putt.
Yeah. Sun went down.
Uh-oh. Happy doesn't know how to punt.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Blake Pace, how will the election impact the team's secondary this week against the 44th best passing offense in the nation?
Would have been huge if it was like 47th or something.
Also, Blake, where are you getting 44th best passing offense? I guess like pure numbers, raw data.
Is that true, or was that an election number of president thing?
Wouldn't it be 47 though?
Blake, you got to explain to us.
Yeah. Hit our line. We have no idea. The passing offense is not that good. Joey Needham asked, thoughts on, this is a perfect segue into men's basketball. Thoughts on men's basketball first game, with that being the first game for 11 new guys. I'm really excited about the ceiling of this team. And we will get deeper with Anderson coming back. Could the ceiling be even higher than last year if that's possible?
I was toggling between work, the women's game, and this game. You attended this game. So you answer this and let us know your thoughts on what you saw.
Look, I'm prone to overreactions. I know. It happens. This team would beat last year's team if they played right here, right
now. This is just so sick. It's like me with football after Ball State, where it's like, give us Indiana on a neutral.
Give us 2023-24 JMU men's basketball on a neutral. I think JMU wins. No, but on a real, like, this team looked like a very, very, very good basketball team for stretches of this game. They also looked like it was the first time they were ever playing together for stretches in this game. There were times when their guard play was absolutely electric. There were times when their guard play was a little sloppy, forcing some tough turnovers and open baskets for Ohio that allowed the Bobcats to kind of slowly creep their way into the game. But what was really cool about that game was every time Ohio went on a run to cut it to 7, to cut it to 5, JMU answered, and you would blink and they'd be back up 13. They'd be back up 15. And you're like, oh, okay. Then they'd get a little sloppy and things would go the other way. But when they were playing their style of defense, when they weren't letting Ohio get those sloppy turnovers and points in transition, JMU looked like the much, much better team. You're right, Joey. Anderson is out. We're not sure his timetable yet. Will Lovings-Watts will be redshirting this year, the transfer from Northern Illinois. So he will not be playing. But that rotation, they're deep at guard. Freeman got into some foul trouble, which was why he didn't have the minutes I think Preston Spradlin may have been necessarily expecting. But it didn't matter. Xavier Brown went off for a career high, and he did it in an efficient, effective way. Something I didn't think we'd be able to see out of Xavier Brown. I didn't think he'd be that type of player, but he has put this team on his back. He is looking electric, doing a phenomenal job. Mark Freeman is just kind of this elder statesman in that backcourt. And it's very important because when he's in and Xavier's in, that offense runs like a well-oiled machine. Look, I am bullish on JMU this year. Noah Williams checked in off of the bench. He didn't have a ton of minutes, but when he first checked in, banged a 3, hit a runner in the lane, and he finished the game 2 for 3 with 5 points. He was really good to watch. Elijah Hutchins-Everett, body. He is a massive man down in the post. And Ebenezer Dewana is going to lead the Sun Belt in blocking shots.
Big time athlete there. Yeah, I like their roster construction more this year, which we talked about, sort of just our, I guess, dislike for how Byington created a roster.
You mean how Byington was allergic to players 6'8" or taller?
He listed all his Vanderbilt players as point guards. I don't know if you saw that on there.
Yeah, people were like, oh, it's because he's saying that, every player needs to touch the ball and act like a point guard when they get it. They're missing the point. No, it's because Mark Byington only recruited point guards. He forgot that you needed forwards.
Yeah, he refuses to play tall players. No, but he had like the positionless thing, and it worked. Like, obviously, right? They're 32-4 last year. They beat Michigan State and Wisconsin. It was cool. They also benefited last year. Like, we're talking about 32-4. I was going back on KenPom and looking at last year's schedule and like cackling to myself. That stuff was bad. Like, they were playing some teams that like they're Division I, but because Division I has like 364 teams now, and not because like they're in the same planet as the top 150 teams. So they won a lot of games last year against just garbage competition. Some of them in conference, some of them out of conference, a lot of them out of conference. So like this year's team's probably not matching that result, but they also, I don't know. I feel like fans, I thought they romanticized last year's football season. I feel like they're kind of romanticizing last year's basketball team sometimes, where like the schedule was super easy. App State was the best team in the Sun Belt regular season. They beat them twice, and those were like infuriating losses. And Duke 40-pieced them to end their season, which everyone like understandably handled that well, including us, I think, right? Where it's like, hey, you won 30-some games in an NCAA
Well, except for
tournament game.
those guys, like those trolls that we had to block on Twitter. Remember them? They'd be like, "You can't give up yet." And it's like Jared McCain's 9 for 9 from 3. We can give up.
But like that was one where like they ended their season just getting demolished. So like I mean they were a good team last year, a very good team, one of the best teams in a while. But like this roster construction of 2 6'11" guys, you have Mark Freeman, who is a Sun Belt Player of the Year caliber point guard. Yeah, go ahead.
Eddie Ricks should not be playing at JMU. Like that dude is a P4 talent. He had like an athletic baseline dunk that was just like, huh? And there were other plays like would just spot up and shoot it, and you're just like, oh, Eddie Ricks, you are very good at basketball. Thank you so much for coming to JMU because you have the potential to be the best player in the Sun Belt by next year.
He's really good. And then like Brown obviously took a leap, and I think I posted that once, and there were a couple of people in the replies like, oh, he's been that guy. He's way better, looks way better than he was last year. He has been a dog, and he's had great energy. But like he shot like 34% from the field last year. He was not like an offensive weapon by any means. I think there were times where Terrence Edwards like on the court was visibly frustrated when he would shoot. So it's a different Xavier Brown.
He also looks huge. Like he put on a lot of muscle, and you saw that with his ability to drive to the basket. Drive to the basket effectively
and actually finish.
Yeah, something he did a lot last year, but maybe sometimes got bodied a little bit in the paint. Ohio's a team that is very similar to what App is probably going to be this year, or other top team, maybe not so much App, but like other top teams in the Sun Belt. Like that is a very comparable team, and he destroyed them.
Yeah, 6 of 8 from on 2-point shots. Last year, I think he was shooting like 33 or 34% on 2-point shots. He actually shot like slightly better from 3, which was interesting. But yeah, he struggled last year to finish inside the 3-point line. Seemed a lot better at that, which is going to be a huge piece of value. I also just like having guards who can go get buckets, which they more so had like wings last year who would go score. And they also had guys that when they had the ball moving very well, like Wooden, Friedel, Michael Green, some other guys, when they could catch it and shoot, they were very...
For those 2 months of Michael Green.
Yeah, and then Green, I guess, a little bit could create his own shot, but he was highly inconsistent in a way that I don't think Freeman and Brown will be this year offensively. So, like, losing Edwards is obviously a huge loss. Wooden was a really reliable guy. But, I mean, you think that if you get Luke Anderson back, maybe he kind of fills that role as, like, your 6'8" spot-up shooter. I don't know. It just seems like a better constructed roster with more size, maybe more athleticism, and definitely a little bit more depth, I think, and like capable depth, because they just didn't have a guy like Mark Freeman who could go score, create his own shot from the point guard spot consistently. Like Michael Green was not going to be getting 15 points a game because there were stretches in conference play where we would talk about like if it's not on national TV or something, he wouldn't score.
He had a stretch for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, where he didn't hit a 3. Remember, he was like 0 for 23.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen to Mark Freeman. And like Green fit what he needed to do because it was a differently constructed roster. I just prefer this one because I think it can win more in March. Like I don't think you're getting 40-piece by anybody with a guard like that, with a team that I think can get a lot better defensively throughout the year, and then with 2 legit 6'11" guys instead of going 6'9" and 6'8" with Bickerstaff and Carey, because Carey really should be a power forward, not a center.
Yeah. I mean, this team probably won't win as many games as they did last year, but will probably be better metric-wise, eye test-wise. They are very good. We didn't even talk about AJ Smith. He is built like a linebacker, and kind of early on in the game, I think he was letting the game come to him, it felt like, where he was almost settling for some jumpers. And then late in the game, it was just like, yes, you are built like a linebacker. You could be playing opposite Jacob Dobbs right here, right now. Drive into the paint. And he started doing that, and he started getting foul calls. And it was like, there we go. Thank you. Keep doing that. And I think he will develop into something that's really nice. Maybe I'm reading way too much into the psychology of this, but I did think it was interesting. Kind of the storyline of the offseason was going out and getting Mark Freeman, who is a great player, but he kind of felt like a redundant player with Xavier Brown. where they both are kind of those ball handling distributor type of point guards. Opening tip off goes to Freeman. He does his thing where you touch the ball, whatever like the pregame win and the tip players do. And then he handed it to Xavier. And to me, that like really showed that Freeman is giving Xavier Brown this team. And it very well could have been Freeman stepped into this team. This is his former coach. He didn't get to play last year, and he wants all the shine for his final year of college eligibility. It really seems like he has come in. He's there to prop up the team, be the player, whatever player they need from him. And it was really cool to see him kind of just hand the ball off to Xavier and say, like, from me in the stands watching it, it just kind of symbolized that this is your team. Go distribute. Go be that guy. Go score a new career high 23 in the season opener of your junior year. I'll be here to cheer you on and be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, I mean, it was really intriguing stuff. And it wasn't like rapid necessarily. I think they're like, when they get into half court sets, they're willing to go a little slower in half court sets. But it was not like Tony Bennett UVA slow, like people were maybe expecting with Preston Spradlin. Like they're moving because I think he has pieces that he feels comfortable. Like, yeah, we can go fast break or we can go slow. And last year, I felt like JMU really struggled when teams like App would make them go slow. And this year's team kind of seems like we're gonna like score however we want because we can go slow and run some half court stuff. We can go fast and get buckets. And that was really exciting to me. It's like, oh, they might just be a mid-major wagon this year. Like the pieces are there.
Yeah, Byington last year just wanted speed, wanted tempo, and just turned it into a track meet at times. I was at the game with Eva, and we're watching it. There was a few spots where they maybe had like the same numbers, like a 2-on-2 could be a fast break, or maybe even like they were a man down, but the way the floor was setting up, you could have maybe tried to go on the fast break. And Byington would have wanted them to go on the fast break, right? Throw it ahead, try to get the dunk, try to get the layup, go on the fast break. Let's go into a track meet. And there were times where JMU just held it, passed it, and let their half court come and get set. And Eva was just kind of like used to last year watching the last few years with me of the Byington era and like the quick tempo, fast pace. We're just like, why aren't they running it? Why aren't they going quicker? Like, why'd they decide to let the other players come up and play in the half court? And it's just like, that's what Spradlin wants. That's what Spradlin he prefers. He'd rather have his plays, his sets, his half court offense over a 2-on-2 fast break or a 2-on-3 fast break.
I dig it, man. I'm way bought in. And look, they might still have some like growing pains as the season goes on because this year's non-conference schedule is much tougher and has some legit tests. Even, I mean, like, so they play Towson soon, 114th in Ken Palm, George Mason's 95th, East Tennessee State 152, Utah Valley, which is catching some shade last podcast, 150. So that's, I mean, Utah Valley's in a much different, like you look at last year, Buffalo was 348, Hampton 341, Coppin State 361, Morgan State 334. Like they were playing some garbage. So it's a better schedule this year.
That leads in well to Caleb's question. Caleb David asked, wish we had a better JMU men's basketball schedule. It feels like win, Sunbelt, or bust. What can JMU to get better schedules in the future? What makes it difficult to get higher caliber non-conference game agreements? At least the Sunbelt tournament is favorable to regular season winners. I think even if JMU had a better non-conference schedule, it would probably be Sunbelt winner or bust, just because the level of play in the Sunbelt isn't high enough to be getting quad 2, quad 1 games on a consistent basis. Like the A10, you're playing a quad 1 or a quad 2 game each and every night. And in the Sunbelt, you're playing a quad 3 or a quad 4 game each and every night. So even if JMU loaded their schedule with VCU, Richmond, George Mason, St. Louis, you had a game maybe on the West Coast against San Francisco in the WCC, like, and had a fun non-conference schedule, that would be awesome. But at the same time, I don't think that would make them, a potential at-large type of team, because the Sun Belt, the bottom of it is just so bad that you're not getting the quality games that you need. JMU can go out and get better schedules in future years, but it's kind of a twofold thing of do you really want to if you're not really going to be an at-large team? And then on the second part of that is these higher caliber non-conference teams have kind of been instructed by their conferences to not schedule teams like JMU.
Yeah, it's all about like gaming the net, which essentially
For the podcast listeners, very aggressive finger quotes there.
Yeah, because some of it's dumb where it's like Houston gamed the net. They beat somebody by 80. And it's like, well, that's it's not gaming anything. Your team has to be good enough to beat somebody by 80. But yes, you get benefit in like the predictive metrics when you blow teams out. So sometimes they try to play easier teams that would be like a non-JMU that you can blow out, or you would try to play a team, that's if you try to play JMU, it's hard because JMU right now is like 140th in Ken Palm. So if you take a home loss to JMU, it doesn't look so good. You got to bank on them like living up to the hype with Preston Spratling. It's a little riskier than it should be. It's frustrating. It is what it is. But the schedule is not that bad. It just isn't like as sexy in terms of names. And the home schedule is kind of boring. Like Utah Valley is not a horrendous game, like 150th, and neither is East Tennessee State 152nd.
I don't care about them.
In Ken Palm, right? But it's like Richmond's 137th, so it's like similar in Ken Palm. But if Richmond was the game, people would be like sick.
Yeah,
the challenge is just like even the A10 is trying to game, their net or whatever, and play teams that are, I guess, make them have a better chance of getting at large. It's all so stupid, but the schedule is not that bad. You just got to find ways to enjoy like team names that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily think of.
Another big team name that you got to enjoy that you wouldn't normally do is Mary Baldwin. Big time game. The Division III school's coming up 81.
Yeah.
I thought Mary Baldwin was an all-girl school.
Maybe it used to be. Probably, right?
I don't know. Let me fact check myself.
You might be surprised.
I'm pretty sure what is their mascot?
No idea.
The Fighting Squirrels.
Oh. Fighting Squirrels. That's very nice to hear.
This is great podcasting. The university became co-ed in 2017. All right, so I'm not crazy.
Okay, good call. You did a good job.
And that is our cue to move to women's basketball.
Let's do a big one for the men. Norfolk State on the road Saturday. Interesting road test early in the year.
It's going to be a tough road test. And JMU does not do well at HBCUs on the road. Coppin State, I'm looking at you.
We will learn about them.
All right, women's basketball.
I like them. I think I'm all in on this team. They just feel grittier than some of the past teams. Where, like, I think the thing that we grew accustomed to in, like, maybe early Sean O'Regan, but definitely Kenny Brooks was, like, they're going to out-rebound teams with a gazillion offensive rebounds. They're going to play really good defense, and they're just going to pick up win after win after win after win. And that's kind of what this one was like. Kent State was 0 of 19 from 3. JMU also had 19 offensive rebounds. They did not score all that much, just 67 points. It wasn't the most impressive offensive performance, but like Hazel had 11, Rose Scott had 19. Might be a nice little scoring punch from Marshall there. Kozlova 11, Ashanti Barnes 13. They rebounded well. They have a bunch of options. They're an experienced team with pretty solid depth. Yeah, I think there's a lot to like here. And this is a nice win over a team that's supposed to be pretty competitive in the MAC.
I love Rose Scott. I think that might be my favorite player. Just the fact that Coach O's quote about her was like, she doesn't like running sprints.
She does not, but she was getting after it.
So we don't make her run sprints. She finished with 4 rebounds, 19 points. Good stuff.
I just think they're just gonna win a lot of games. Now the non-conference schedule is pretty brutal at times.
Yeah.
But they come home on Thursday. They're playing Loyola, Maryland, and then they play ECU on Sunday. A chance to get to 3-0 with those two. Then they go at Notre Dame. So they have some really tough games, but they also could get off to a pretty nice start this year because it doesn't get particularly brutal until December when it gets at VCU, home against Texas, at Villanova, at NC State. There's a possibility that they go from like late November and then don't win another game until they play Troy, which has been historically good in the Sun Belt. I mean, they could
be a rough stretch.
There's a potentially win this December on the table, but at the same time, some great matchups that should prepare them for Sun Belt play. I also haven't looked and seen how good VCU actually is this year, so that one might not be that brutal. But great matchups.
Yeah, Texas ranked 4 currently. NC State ranked 9th currently. So definitely a tough draw, but I'm all in on them. They feel very much like that team was at COVID year when the 2019 year they just turned it over a lot. They look like they had the potential, but they can never just fully put it together. And then that next year, everything kind of meshed together. Feels very similar with this team, where last year sometimes there was just making you want to pull your hair out. But then essentially that entire team came back, and somehow, some way, most of this team can come back next year too, because Peyton McDaniel's somehow still just a redshirt junior.
Doesn't make any sense.
She was there when I was there, I thought.
They do have a lot of talent that could and then they can certainly backfill with some transfer. Yeah, so I mean, they're like the future's looking pretty darn nice for them.
Yeah, so great stuff from the women's team. When are they in action next? They play Loyola, Maryland, right?
Yep, Thursday. Then they got ECU Sunday, so a couple home games. I would like to see better home attendance for them this year. I got to get myself out to a home game or two this year as well.
Yeah, you do. Let me know when we can go.
Yeah, we got to figure something out. Maybe it's find a good Sun Belt matchup or something. But I hope they have better attendance, because last year the men's had great attendance, and some of the student sections and overall attendance for the women was a little bit lacking. And it kind of makes sense with the men winning like 30 games and having a historic season. But I think this women's team is going to be like equally as fun, man. They're going to be really, really good. They're going to play great defense. They have multiple scorers. They just seem like more complete than your average mid-major, or like 90% of your mid-majors.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it. Around the sports world for JMU, field hockey doing some really nice things. Alice Roper named Offensive Player of the Year in the MAC. Christy Morgan, Coach of the Year in the MAC. Cassidy Stripmatter, First Team All-Conference. Sarah Beers, Carissa Tambrani, Second Team All-Conference. Molly Schreiner, Lily Turner, all freshman team. Really, really great season for field hockey. After a rough 2023, rough 2022, kind of floating around in no conference affiliation land wasn't kind to them, but landing in the MAC this year has really done some good things for that program.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the semifinals are Thursday of the MAC championship, and then the championship will be Saturday. They've certainly got a chance to be in that championship game.
Yep, they'll either take on Kent State or Ball State, whoever wins that quarterfinals match.
And they smoked both in the regular season.
Men's soccer may be broken.
Yeah, we got some concerns going on there.
Have you turned them off and turned them back on again?
So they haven't, what is it? They haven't won a match in 4 straight matches. 3 of them losses, 1 tie. Yeah,
so dating back to October 23rd, they lost to South Carolina on the road 3-1. A huge 2-2 draw against the 6th-ranked Mountaineers of West Virginia. A tough 1-0 home loss against Georgia State. And then another 1-0 loss in Norfolk against ODU. So that dropped them from – go ahead.
No, I was going to say those are the ones that alarm me a little bit. Georgia State and ODU have not been world beaters this year. The other two, like South Carolina, West Virginia, whatever, but Georgia State and ODU are not playing that great this year.
ODU's fine. I called one of their games. I did a men's soccer game.
Okay. Were they like 500-ish?
Yeah, they're fine. They're good. They showed flashes against South Carolina, but they're just unable to finish. Didn't have a lot of quality in the final third, but they had the flashes.
Yeah.
You're traveling, you're on the road, tough. But just kind of being winless over your last 4 games to end the season when you were in a prime spot to be the number 1 overall seed in the Sun Belt tournament, you then have a bad 4-week stretch to finish out the year, and you go from 1st to, I believe, 4th in the blink of an eye. So
got UCF in the quarterfinals, it looks like.
Yep. And then
Okay,
women's
that's on
soccer.
Sunday.
Women's soccer continues to win. They have not lost a match since September 5th. They're so good.
They had a little heart palpitations the last one out though. ULM
Hey.
for whatever reason gives them some fits.
Hey. It's fine.
But they advanced. So they get through
ODU
the
advanced. ODU advanced on PKs too.
Yeah, and then I think South Alabama, the 2 seed, lost in the quarters.
I think so.
So just true chaos.
I like how we're saying this when we don't.
I feel confident that South Alabama lost. I saw that in a tweet. Did not follow up on it at all, but it processed in my brain. So then what's the bracket look like? It's got to be kind of chaotic. Or is it just one something 3-4? That's not that chaotic.
It's 6-3, 3-6, 7-2. Coastal beat South Alabama 2-1, 1-8, 4-5. Nothing crazy. So now Texas State 3-7 will take on Coastal Carolina, and it's 1-4 JMU taking on ODU.
3-7. Okay. So you could have. Okay. How'd they do against ODU this year? 3-2 win in Harrisonburg in the first meeting. That's a big one. That's tonight. That's where we're recording on Wednesday.
It is. Should be a good one. Should be a very good one. ODU has one of the best keepers in the entire Sun Belt. Emily Bredick, very, very good between the pipes. Their offense at times was a little lackluster, but it'll be a test for JMU. Their offense has to break through. They got to lean on Ginny Lackey. Hope she can find the back of the net once or twice, and then just hope they can kind of shut down ODU's offense, who I believe it was a 1-1 draw against Georgia State where ODU advanced on PKs 3-1. So just silence the Monarchs offense and you should be good.
They've also had some, since coming to the Sun Belt, JMU Sun Belt tournament runs. So both ended with a finals loss in overtime to ODU. I think 2 overtimes in 22 and then 1 overtime last year. So they've had some heartbreakers here. There could be a little revenge factor for some of the girls. Also,
ODU knows how to win in the postseason. They're back to back conference champions, Conference USA, Sun Belt. So they're the 4 seed, but they know how to win in the postseason, which matters.
That'll be a good one. If the Dukes do advance, championship is Saturday. You know more about the soccer world than me. Are they in at large
women's soccer?
Last year, I was like, oh, they got an at large. I hadn't even thought about it.
Let me check. I don't know what their RPI is right now.
So do they do bracketology for that?
I mean, they do bracketology for anything you can want. Sorry, I'm pulling up their RPI right now. Ish, maybe. Yeah. They're 60th in the RPI.
What was it last year? Do you remember?
And you're asking me to do a lot of work.
I didn't know if you remember off the top of your head. I remember last year that I thought
45.
The men were playing great and the women were solid, but then they lost ODU and I was like, oh, that's a shame. And then they got in. And I was like, oh my God.
I think their slower start to the season, if I'm not mistaken, hurt them. So they've been electric in conference play, 8-0-2 in Sun Belt, but loss against Virginia Tech, a LaSalle draw, a draw at Maryland, a 3-0 loss against number 7 Virginia, 2-0 loss against West Virginia. Some tough losses that are pulling down their RPI right now. And I don't think the Sun Belt's doing a lot to then prop it back up. So anything else you got to add?
Conference play. Okay. So we'll see what happens.
All right. For Bennett Conlon, as his internet is being extremely spotty, and I'm not sure if he's still with us or not. I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. I'm Jack. Oh, he's still there. He's still there. Thank you for tuning in to the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. We'll be back next week. Be sure to rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening. A review goes a long way. Please leave us 5 stars. If you feel so inclined, leave us a written review. We really appreciate it. And you can follow us at JMU Sports News on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Have a great rest of your day. See ya.